Welcome to the Above Center Leadership Podcast. I'm Marcy.
And I'm Allison, and this is our chance to learn from leaders who know how to get results while staying above center.
Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Above Center Podcast. I'm here today with my sister and co-host, Allison Nissen. And today we're talking about one of the biggest leadership questions, probably of our lives, is really as AI gets smarter, what becomes more important about being human? And this conversation is so relevant because I think that's on everybody's mind as we speak. And our guest today is Robin Green. He's author of The Intelligence Loop. And this book is really, it's so insightful because his background, he has a career in helping organizations navigate technology and data and AI and growth, but doing it with executives that are asking these types of questions with some of the largest companies that are out there. So, Robin, congratulations on your new book. We are so grateful you're here, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and nice to see you again, Marcy. And Allison, nice to see you.
So I'd love to just start off with this message around your book. So it's really around, kind of the future isn't going to belong to those that have the best tools or the best technologies. It's really around how humans are going to collaborate and work better together, leveraging the tools. Can you give us a little bit more insight to like where you came kind of with this idea and that inspirational moment where like, I have to write a book?
Well, it's a great question. Actually, the title was not completely original. No, AI did not come up with the title, and no, AI did not write the book. I'll talk to you about that. But I actually was inspired. The original title was something different, and I got inspired once I started writing it by the work of a Yale science professor. His name is Nishith Vishnoy, and he does work on iterative intelligence systems, and he's got a Substack called The Intelligence Loop. And so when I saw that, it fit directly into this concept that I've been working on for a number of years, which is, a loop in nature or a loop in human beings or a loop in business is more definitive than just these hierarchical endpoint systems that start here and go down here and branch in there. And so this loop is all about learning and applying and reflecting and refining, and then using the refined process to go back into learning again. And so you're constantly doing that. And in its best form, that loop really does enhance the human's ability to be human and uniquely human while you still leverage technology to do what it does best, which is expand, elaborate, do a lot of deep research, do the work that one person just couldn't do. So that was the work behind it, and I actually started it in bits and pieces many years ago. I've been, I think Marcy, you and I talked about this once, but I've been in and around AI since we were calling it expert systems, right back in the day. And I was
Mhm.
reminded, there's people that go back even further than that. I was listening to an interview between Tony Robbins and Ray Kurzweil the other day, and he goes back, he was talking about AI 60 years ago. So it's what really prompted me to write the book was out of nowhere, suddenly everyone was talking about it, even though it had been embedded in systems, it had been creeping into all the parts of everyday life, but no one was talking about it. And up 2 or 3 years ago, suddenly everyone was talking about it. That's what prompted me to write to finish the book.
So
Yeah, I love.
what I've noticed is that so many people are fearful about AI because again, it came on suddenly 60 years later, right? It came onto the scene suddenly. It sort of wiped out our perspective of the typical growth curve. So
Yep.
if an employee, for example, they start off as in the early stages of their career and they have a certain trajectory and they take those normal steps. But with AI, that's accelerated in many ways. And so all of a sudden our perspectives have changed and shifted. And so how does perspective come into play with AI as both something that is to be is the wrong word. That is something to be scared, like people are fearful of, and those people that embrace it, people that are able to learn that it is about asking better questions and using the technology to ask better questions.
That really does cut to the heart of the book. As I've been collecting stories and case studies for a number of years, and I think there are over 100 of them in the book itself. Many of those are from direct experience, and others I did deep research on. But as I was working on the book over the last couple of years at night and on the weekends, during off hours, whenever I had any, the public conversation around AI was just getting louder. And it became a lot more polarized, just to your point, Allison. You had on one side these cheerleaders. They were saying technology is going to save us. It's going to be utopia. And then you had on the other side the doomers who were warning that we're all going to be replaced and that humanity as we know it's going to end. And it just occurred to me that I've never believed either one of those extremes. I think both camps are making the same mistake. They're putting something at the center that shouldn't be there. They're putting the machine, the technology at the center. And what I believe is that when you put the human back at the center, where dignity actually belongs, then you find that AI is actually something that can enhance the experience because it leaves to the human being what is uniquely human: judgment, meaning, a sense of purpose, the inception of a question. You get better prompting, you ask better questions, but even that statement buries in it the actual concept of the human has to ask the question. Now there is this concept that AGI is going to be here and that you'll have self-thinking machines that self-actualize, and that may all be true, but ultimately nothing starts without a human asking a question. Sometimes it's why, sometimes it's what, sometimes it's how, but it always starts with the human. And when you view the technology through that lens, I think AI is actually a very freeing technology because you remove the grind away from everyday human being activity, and you allow humans to be more creative. And if you're afraid of that, I don't think you'll necessarily be replaced by a machine, but you may very well be replaced by someone who's not afraid of it. So another human being who harnesses it better.
So a lot of times when I think of AI, I feel like there's different layers of people engaged with AI. So there's the obvious user, writing emails or, kind of like the one-on-one level. And then there's a little bit of better level. Maybe they're using Claude for programming, but it's still
Yeah.
kind of accessible for the average business person.
Mhm.
But there's this kind of addiction to efficiency or effectiveness and just getting it done faster.
Oh,
And
yes.
so growing up in business, I felt like half of my how I did well in work is because I had to have those conversations like, what are you saying? Like that the slowness allowed me to think differently and ask better questions. So when it comes up and the answer is like right in front of me, I'll read it. I'm like, well, that looks good. And it's like there's this almost race for efficiency and speed that I feel like there's some loss of the human factor of intellectual curiosity or where that came from. Like, can you help me understand like your thoughts around that and making sure we don't lose the most human aspect of us is that level of curiosity?
Yeah, I mean, trying to put this in the frame of your above center and below center thinking, um, I would say the most important question that you need to ask is why, or sometimes should we, before you ask can we. And most AI adoption that I see today, they blow right past the why and the should, and they go right to the how and the can, right? And so without a compass, without an understanding of what the output is supposed to actually solve for, all you're doing is getting smarter and smarter and faster at just wondering, just sort of wandering around. And and I see that happening in everyday life too, like in sales meetings. It becomes about, with AI now, it becomes about the process and not about the reason you have the process in the first place, right? I mean, anyone who's ever carried a bag, Marcy, I think you did, and I certainly have. We've all sat through these pipeline calls, right? And whoever's leading the call, um, you know, we start going through the pipeline, and when a deal hasn't progressed, what happens? Sales executives get pressed on why the deal hasn't moved from one stage to the next. Why hasn't this moved? Who have you talked to? Did you do a demo? What's the budget? What's the timeline? All the what questions. And
Mhm.
what gets lost, very similar to how what happens in AI, is wait, what's the first principle? What are we trying to solve for here? Are we trying to solve for our quarter and getting the deal done now and getting it on a commission report? Or are we trying to actually solve a customer problem? That's the human element that comes into play. That's the judgment factor that I don't see AI actually being able to solve for. Now, granted, I've never seen every AI system out there, but I'm very familiar with them. And I've never been able to see an AI implementation that can solve for judgment, which is why the human element has got to stay in the middle of it. Otherwise, you're just getting very fast processes, and bad processes made faster just lead to bad results sooner.
So well said. So, if we could stay on sales leadership for a moment. So,
Sure.
the DNA of a salesperson is someone that's willing to be in front of the customer, ask the hard questions, and, kind of that personality trait that they can get their clients to open up, say, about their pains and what they're trying to solve. So, I see with AI how that can, expedite the process. But I also see salespeople are inherently lazy, like with documentation, or and I'm going to say guilty of right here, but like, just want to be so fast. They don't want to document or they don't want to go through the process. So, like, what risks do sales leaders have when their sales team might be leaning too much on AI and asking for the what, not the should we? And, they're just that little bit of drift from the actual plan in place to win a deal versus the person kind of going a little bit rogue with their AI.
Yeah.
What type of leadership? How do you talk about sales leadership in the world of AI?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. And again, I'm going to sound like a broken record on on this call because it always comes back to me the first principle of you got to stay human. You got to be grounded in a human sense of what you're trying to do in the first place. And so, when I look at sales leaders and sales executives and the ones that I've seen um, to be the most successful, really I see a number of traits that they have. The first is a real conscience, right? They have this moral imagination, and they see the consequences behind a decision, not just the efficiency of it. So that will guide them on whether they take shortcuts or they don't take shortcuts. And so when a strong salesperson or a strong sales leader understands that there are consequences to taking those shortcuts or to those efficiency gains, a good one will slow people down, right? And just ask whether something is right rather than just move really fast. And then you have to clean up all of that mess behind them after they've made the mistake. So if you're trying to be efficient for the sake of efficiency, then you're going to lose sight of what the customer problem is that you're trying to solve for. And you're just going to be slinging hash against the wall and trying to throw numbers up, or you're going to try to take credit where it doesn't belong, right? So I mean that's the first thing, just that conscience. And I think there's a second trait that I think about a lot, which is having an innate sense of curiosity, but pairing it with humility. Just because you're efficient does not mean you're not going to be replaced. I mean, the half-life of expertise today is collapsing, right? I mean, roughly half of all the core skills that people rely on today are going to shift in a few years or in a few months or even sometimes in a few days. So, a salesperson or a sales leader who claims that they know everything, that they'll be one of the first people obsoleted, right? So, I mean, I've always preferred being surrounded by people who have that curiosity and the honesty to say, I don't know the answer to that, but I will go find out. And then they go find out. So they don't have to just jump to the answer just to have an answer. That sort of goes back to your efficiency question. And I think finally the third thing would be having, you know, something that I call, I don't think I use this in the book, but I'm using it in my next one. It's what I call the head and the heart and the hands together, right? It's the ability to reason with data, always grounded in fact, to genuinely empathize with the people that you're working with or the people that you're selling to, and then to act boldly and to act with courage. And, plenty of people have one or two of those, but I think real leaders and real strong salespeople with good character, they have all three. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of how I look at it.
I'll tell you what. So you're speaking my language there. We got our head, hand,
Okay.
and heart. I talk about that all the time, and in creating connection, particularly within writing,
Yes.
and communication, right? So we have that, and that's basically the rhetorical triangle. We've got our trust, we've got our empathy, and we've got our logic,
Yeah.
which is exactly what you said.
Well,
Head, hand, and heart.
I mean, there's not much original thinking out there,
Right.
but it's
But
putting it into practice, right? It's being able to take it, Allison, and do something with it, and not just read about it and tack it on a board someplace and look at it every now and then. But you actually have to live it out.
yes, yes, you have to live it out. So that brings me to a question of, we talked about how you need to, I like to think of AI, and this is one of the things that I will talk about a lot, is that AI won't replace humanity for its critical thinking, its curiosity, its creativity, and its caring. Right?
Right.
Those are the things in my in my limited knowledge of AI that I've landed on. But that brings me to hiring. So we
Ah,
are training a new generation, or people are moving on to different parts of their career. And I know that AI is all over the hiring scene right now. But how does a person get, how does that empathy, how does that caring and creativity, that curiosity and critical thinking get past the AI wall into the hiring realm?
It's a very direct and straight question, and unfortunately, I don't think that there is a single answer because I think it is, without sounding like I'm being wishy-washy, it depends. It is situationally dependent because every every enterprise, large or small, they are at a different stage in their AI adoption, and depending on where they are in that curve will depend on and the role that a person is being hired into will really determine where they need to fit in that rubric of how much AI knowledge do you have, how much do you need. But I mean, I think in general, we're in a season right now where capability is just, and AI is making this possible, it's just increasingly abundant, right? If I were hiring today, I'm not today, but if I were, I would be hiring exactly what you just said, those things that cannot be automated, right? I mean, almost any technical skill can be automated. So if you're great with spreadsheets, good luck because AI can do it better and faster and without mistakes. But any technology skill can be augmented, it can be accelerated, it can be generated. But what cannot be generated is judgment, character. What I said earlier, that instinct to ask, should we, before you ask, can we, right? And I keep coming back to that because I think so many folks forget to go there. They're very quick to jump on a bandwagon without asking, should we do this? Why are we doing it? Not can we do it, and how much is it going to cost? So that's what I would be looking for is the traits of in people who can learn quickly. They are not afraid to to learn new skills. They have the ability to pick up something they've never done before and try it because you can't learn anything without that. And they're not afraid to ask questions. They're not afraid to say, I don't know how to do this. Can you help me? Or can you point me in a direction where I can find it? And that always comes back to the character of a person. And then, do they have the right judgment? Like how much of this should I lean on before it becomes the algorithm talking and not me?
It's such interesting times. I almost want to ask like a super practical question.
Sure.
If you have somebody on your team, hypothetically speaking, asking for a friend, that's very, that's very, say, talented with spreadsheets, talented more like on the disk scale, high C, black and white, um, and the way their brain works, it's kind of a results oriented framework. Not that they don't have curiosity, but showing their work through the proof of the spreadsheet algorithm type thing. I'm kind of trying to connect it to what you're saying. But you don't want them to be a cynic around AI, but some of their cynicism is a balance for the organization as well. But how do you begin the process to teach them to embrace curiosity in the world of gray? Because they still, they have one thing that the AI says incorrectly or added wrong, and they're like back to, 2023. So, like, how do you kind of help lead somebody to continue their work they do, elevate with the organization to embrace AI
Mhm.
with not, if the rest of the team is all in AI and they're like going 100 miles per hour, you do want somebody that has a little healthy skepticism around it to slow some things down, to think about governance or to think about things like that. So, from a leadership point of view, how do you help somebody that's kind of in that box?
I think the first thing, and again, I said I was like a broken record. It always comes back to the why. What are we using the AI to do, right? Why? Why are we using AI for this? Now, if it's simply to pull numbers, and actually, let me give you an example from when I was writing the book. I mean, I'll give you an example where I had to make a decision on what to use AI to lean into and what not. So, as I mentioned, the book itself is not written by AI. The thoughts and the insights and the phrasing and the overall thesis entirely mine, um, just based on living exactly what you're talking about, Marcy. I did, however, I finished the book with significant AI assistance, not as a shortcut, but as a method and a demonstration of the whole thesis of the book, right? I mean, I run right now a multi-agent AI operating system that I built on something called OpenClaw. You may be familiar with that. I have research agents that handle a substantial portion of my deep research, my verification, and my synthesis work operating, operating and cross-referencing data and drafting and revising at speeds I couldn't do on my own. I have a sort of a digital twin called Syn, S-Y-N, that I've put everything I know into, and I've got I've equipped Syn with a lot of tools, but I know the difference between just turning it over to that digital twin and doing it myself. And I think that if someone is stuck in there and all they're doing is showing you the result, then you have to ask, what are you trying to accomplish with that? So to bring it back to your question, an example might be I have to produce an output showing sales data and demand data and performance year over year and month over month. Okay, so I use AI to produce these nice graphs, and it's a nice slide. But where are the insights?
Hmm.
So when you present that to leadership, when you take that output and you say, "Here's the report," okay, well, what? So what? What can you tell me that I can't read off of this page? And if I can't read something, if you can't tell me something that I can't read off this page, then why am I talking to you? So you have to always put your insights back into it. That's where that judgment comes back in. The human ability to look at something and to glean new insights that the numbers alone don't tell you. That's what I
And
would
that's
coach
that
you to do.
loop, the
Yes,
loop.
exactly.
I
Exactly.
love the visual of the loop. I mean, it's so good and it's so practical. But if you kind of think of AI like output and linear and the end result, you're missing the human factor. Like you're missing that
Exactly.
loop.
Because at its best, what AI is really designed to do is enhance the human experience of being human.
Hmm.
And without it, it becomes kind of a soulless, just an empty shell of AI agents talking to AI agents producing AI
Right.
output. with no enlightenment.
hmm Yeah, and that's like, my question, why I felt like it was really practical and kind of profound. As soon as you start talking, and I'm like, well, it makes so much sense. A leader's job is to bring the human element more to the forefront in the decision-making process as they're leveraging
Yeah,
technology. And if a leader can stay true to the human factor of leadership, which, is exactly how you're describing, that's how teams are going to win together.
I think so. Yes.
Which reminds me, I think you have a great quote. And I'd love to
Oh,
reveal the quote and have a little bit of a discussion around this. I feel like it's like perfect timing to ask that. But tell us a little bit more. We'll have the great quote reveal, your above center quote.
well, so a while back, I I came across a quote by Stephen Hawking, and that quote was, it's the one that's on my cup. Everything civilization has to offer is a product of human intelligence. Now, he was speaking about something different at the time, but it always stuck with me. And that line, I mean, that line has always been sort of a guiding principle for me. And in the book, I kept coming back to a version of that of my own, which is progress without purpose is just a more efficient kind of wandering. I mean, it's what we were talking about earlier. And, that mantra of coming back to where's the human intelligence in this is just this always alarm going on with me. If I see something happening that doesn't have any in human intelligence, or when I find myself getting busy, or I'm optimizing, or I'm moving too fast, it just stops me and asks me whether all the motion is actually pointed at something worthy, or if, speed and velocity become sort of what you would call below center thinking, right? It just gets you lost a lot faster. And, I think when we can lift that up to the above center framework, that same energy that you're applying to getting lost becomes direction. And the difference between those is human intelligence. That's why I chose that quote.
Oh, I love it. It's so good. So, with the one more question, like around the above center and below center, I think you're articulating it really well, where people, especially with AI, there's a lot of theories, hypothesis, opinions, and some founded, some based below center in fear of the negative things that are going to happen, some in wonder, like the above center. So when it comes to like your leadership principles and leading teams to accomplish great things and some of the things I've seen from your resume and all the experience you have, how do you describe who you've been as a leader and how that hasn't changed as you're becoming as a leader, like using the technology in this, kind of intelligent loop? But like, how do you describe your leadership and like kind of what anchors you in your leadership philosophy for both yesterday and tomorrow?
Ah, it's a great question. Um, my leadership style, it's learn, always learn, and don't ever think the learning is over, because it never is.
Robin, that is such great advice. One more time, tell us the title of your book. Do you happen to have it that you could hold it up for
I,
us?
yes, it's
Look at
called the
that.
intelligence.
Look at that. Bring it close to the camera so we can all see it. There we go.
Let me see
Um,
it there. Yeah.
I think it's disappearing. Oh
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. It's
It's
called
like the
the
magic book.
it is. It disappears if you don't grab it. It's called the Intelligence Loop, and the subtitle is A New Model for Growth and How We Get Smarter Together. And Marcia, you may remember the first time you and I talked about it, it was called Smarter Together.
Mhm.
And my genius daughter, who's now a brand manager for a very large company, she read the book. She goes, "No, no, you're burying the headline." I said, "What is it?" She goes, "It's the intelligence loop. It's right there on page blah blah blah." Right. So that's when we switched the title and it put smarter together in the subtitle.
Oh, that's awesome. It kind of goes to your whole like always learning,
Yes.
where having, a child, like you lean on them for like having that level of curiosity. How else could we do like that type of approach of learning and applying and things like that
Yeah.
is always so great.
Hmm.
So we loved
Absolutely.
having you with us. Thank you so much for sharing your insight with us. And we're excited to celebrate you on your path as you continue to from your first book to your second book. And if anybody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best What's the best way?
Best way is probably the website, which is robindgreen.com. You can also reach me by email, robin.d.green@gmail.com. Those are the two
Wonderful.
easiest ways. Yeah. And I'm
Well,
on
thank you again
LinkedIn.
so much. We
Thank you
appreciate
very
your
much.
time. And again, as always, Alice and I love hosting these podcasts. We get to learn from business leaders from like you and get to learn along the way. So today was definitely one of those conversations I'll always remember because I keep thinking I have a little bit of a linear thought process with AI, and it just went upside down through reading some of your book and then this interview. So thank you so much.
Well, let me know if I can ever help. Thank you very much.
Okay, so every time we have one of these conversations, I always go in feeling like super prepared. And then I leave and I'm like, wow, I wasn't expecting to learn something. And I feel like the conversation with Robin was pretty cool because I've always loved that quote, and I've heard it before, I'm not sure where, but that progress without purpose is just a more efficient kind of wandering. And when it's applying with AI, it's almost like speed without direction is just pointless. Like there's no reason, like speeding up to go where? Like I remember when I first started using ChatGPT and AI, I was so excited to get things so much faster to create more space on my calendar, but now I'm just faster. And so I really, that human judgment of making sure there's the purpose, like, should we do this? Not could we do this or how? And slowing down the speed to make sure there's clarity around what you're trying to do. So I thought that was a cool takeaway for me.
Right. He kept coming back to the word judgment and human judgment and making judgment calls. Like it really is a lot of times about that's the thing that separates people from machines, right? Is being able to make a judgment with caring, with empathy. So it's not just making a judgment, because that's just making a decision, right? It's about doing it with caring. And so we're doing it with purpose, right? And what's that joke is like you just want to get to your like being faster doesn't necessarily shouldn't be the end all because you might just be getting to your in-laws faster. Isn't that there's
This
some
is
sort of
getting
joke.
recorded, Allison.
There's some sort of joke in there. Yeah, I shouldn't say that.
But I will say I do love the point of that. That makes total sense. And then the whole intelligent loop is if we think about the loop is not just what else could you do, what are the results, but it's like adding in that level of judgment, like what impact could this have, positive and negative? What else should I be considering? And asking those types of questions, like with another human, those questions come naturally for me. With AI, speed, accuracy, confirm, like it's a different level of prompts. And so I can't wait to start trying that a little bit more.
All right. Well, hey, it's been great to have another podcast under our belts because you
That's
know
right.
what?
We need to count our episodes.
It's,
As always, it's better together.
Bye.
Learn more at therebelcompanies.com.
That was fun.